version recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into diagonal back. Distribution moves from 90 degrees to directed. Elevation is 90 degrees to over-directed. And the line is cut visually, increasing in length. Personalizing is an essential part of the Toni&guy philosophy. Texturizing techniques are used to adapt classic shapes to suit the individual. On the last video in this series, we introduced techniques such as point cutting, slicing, brick cutting, and razoring, which expand the classic portfolio to accommodate all lengths and textures of hair and allow the stylist to develop their creativity for the benefit of the client. The one-length cutting technique is used to create a square one-level line that falls below the shoulder. A profile parting is taken from the center of the forehead to the center of the nape, using the wide teeth of the comb. Diagonal forward sections are taken from the occipital to the back of the ear. Section depth is determined by hair density. The denser the hair, the finer the section. With the head slightly forward, the hair is combed to natural fall using the fine teeth of the comb to maximize tension. Keeping the profile parting in place, the line is cut square, holding the hair in the comb from the profile to the outer edge. The opposite side is then worked in piecemeal, from the profile to the outer edge. Check balance. With denser hair, you would continue with another diagonal forward section, which would be cut in the same manner following the original guideline. Here, however, we are moving on to the next section, a horseshoe, which is taken slightly diagonally forward to encourage over-directed distribution and a square line. With the head upright, the hair is combed to the natural fall and directed back behind the shoulder. Maintain the profile parting and, holding the hair in the wide teeth of the comb to minimize tension, the line is cut to exactly the same length as the existing guideline. The other side is worked in the same way, starting from the profile and piecemealed to the outside edge. Balance is checked both technically and visually. Horseshoe sections, which are taken on a slight diagonal forward angle, are continued up the head using the same technique as before. The last section is taken as the profile parting is reached. Be aware of crown movement. If growth pattern is particularly strong, work with minimum tension. balance. The cut is now finished and the hair is ready for blow drying. Use a flat brush, drying the nape hair first, so as this will safeguard against lying dry hair on top of wet, and build a smoother finish. A T-section colouring technique was used on this one-length cut. This technique can be viewed on our classic colouring series. One-length recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into a diagonal forward, into horseshoe. The distribution moves from natural fall into over-directed. Elevation is 0 degrees, held in the comb, and the line is cut square. Personalizing is an essential part of the Toni&guy philosophy. Texturizing techniques are used to adapt classic shapes to suit the individual. On the last video in this series, we introduced techniques such as point cutting, slicing, brick cutting, and razoring, which expand the classic portfolio to accommodate all lengths and textures of hair and allow the stylist to develop their creativity for the benefit of the client. The forward graduation technique is a combination of the one-length cutting technique in the back and face framing graduation at the front. The one-length line is cut using the one-length cutting technique, which can be viewed on tape 1 of this series. But to briefly recap the one-length technique, partings and sections move from a profile into a diagonal forward, into horseshoe. The distribution moves from natural fall into over-directed. Elevation is 0 degrees, held in the comb, and the line is cut square. Having established the profile parting, a diagonal back section is taken from the profile to the top of the ear, approximately 1 inch in from the front hairline, depending on the depth of the recession area. With the head upright, the section is combed T to the parting using the fine teeth of the comb. The section is elevated to 45 degrees away from the face. The line is cut visually from the lowest point of the perimeter up to the lip or jaw level, depending on what's most suitable for the face shape. this method on the opposite side. Check the balance from the front and behind the head. A diagonal back section is taken using the initial parting as a pivot. The section extends behind the ear to the nape. With the head upright, the section is combed teeth to the parting using the wide teeth of the comb and elevated to the stationary 45-degree guideline. The line is cut to follow the guide from the baseline up. Continue with pivoting diagonal back sections. The width of the section is dependent on hair density. The denser the hair, the finer the section. Always combing T to the parting. The elevation is stationary, at 45 degrees away from the face, cutting to follow the guideline. The last section is taken when the profile parting is reached. repeat exactly the same method on the opposite side. Taking a diagonal back section, combing T to the parting, elevating to 45 degrees away from the face, and cutting visually from the baseline up. Balance. The hair is now ready for blow drying. Power dry first to remove excess moisture. Then, using the same sectioning pattern as for the cut, use a flat brush in the back and a round brush in the front. Here we have applied the OXO colouring technique, which can be viewed on our classic colouring series. The shape is checked visually both behind and in front of the shoulders. Forward graduation recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into diagonal back, into pivoting diagonal back. Distribution is T to the parting. Elevation is a stationary 45 degrees. The line is cut visually from the baseline up. Personalizing is an essential part of the Toni&guy philosophy. Texturizing techniques are used to adapt classic shapes to suit the individual. On the last video in this series, we introduced techniques such as point cutting, slicing, brick cutting, and razoring, which expand the classic portfolio to accommodate all lengths and textures of hair and allow the stylist to develop their creativity for the benefit of the client. The natural inversion technique creates a surface layer for volume and texture. The perimeter has been created by using the one-length technique, and also the forward graduation technique, both of which can be viewed in this collection. But to briefly recap these techniques, one-length recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into a diagonal forward, into horseshoe. The distribution moves from natural fall into over-directed. Elevation is 0 degrees, held in the cone, and the line is cut square. Forward graduation recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into diagonal back, into pivoting diagonal back. Distribution is T to the parting. Elevation is a stationary 45 degrees. The line is cut visually from the baseline up. A profile parting is taken from the center of the forehead to the center of the nape. Diagonal forward partings are taken approximately 1 inch below the crown to the top of the ear to isolate the hair at the back of the head, which will not be cut. A profile section is taken approximately ½ an inch wide from the partings below the crown to the front hairline. With the head upright, the section is combed up at 90 degrees. And using the guide from the forward graduation, approximately 1 inch in from the front hairline, the line is cut at an angle to increase in length. Behind the crown, the section is over-directed up and the angle continued. A diagonal back section is taken from in front of the crown. With the head upright, the section is combed to 90 degrees and over-directed to the profile guideline using the fine teeth of the comb. Always stand on the opposite side to the sections being cut to maintain a balanced distribution. Diagonal back sections are continued until reaching the front hairline. Continue to use exactly the same method of cutting, combing the hair to 90 degrees, then over-directing to the profile guide. Check visually. Continue on the opposite side by re-establishing the profile section and working the sectioning pattern in exactly the same way. Take a diagonal back section from in front of the crown. Comb hair to 90 degrees and over direct into the center, cutting to follow the existing guideline. Remembering to always stand on the opposite side to the sections cut to maintain a balanced distribution. Visually. The hair is now ready for blow drying. Power dry to remove excess moisture. Using a round brush, section the same way as the shape was cut. Here, the hair has been coloured using the progressive dimensional colour technique, which can be viewed in the Toni&guy Classic Colour series. Natural inversion recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into diagonal back. Distribution moves from 90 degrees to directed. Elevation is 90 degrees to over directed. And the line is cut visually, increasing in length.